r/AskReddit. What caused you to think I'm never visiting again after being in someone's home? I've got two. First one. I was pretty young, so like 6/7. My mum was friends with this woman called Louise, and she had a daughter that was about my age. Mum didn't really know Louise all that well because they met through mutual friends, but the daughter and I got along, so we arranged a sleepover at her place. The house was fine, but I started feeling pretty homesick because I didn't know these people very well. I walked out into the lounge to try to get Louise the mum's attention to maybe ring my mum so I could leave, but before I could speak I saw her and her boyfriend fucking on the couch. Lol. Anyways, that exact boyfriend was later found to be molesting my little friend, and the mum ended up becoming a lesbian in the future. Second one. I was 18, met up with this guy that I had been talking online to for a while. We had mutual friends. We took the train to his house, which he shared with an older couple who had a few kids. It was legit a trash house. Absolutely filthy. McDonald's sundae with ice cream still in it was used as an ashtray. It stunk so bad, and the kids were just like playing on the floor in dirty nappy while their fat lazy stinky parents watched TV and did drugs. I left so quick. I didn't know he or where I was going would have drugs going down, and he was trash too. He kept ringing up his underage ex-GF and abusing her verbally. I didn't know very much about him, obviously. Lol. I was an IT contractor that was sent to a few assisted living houses. These houses were for adults that suffered from a wide variety of developmental issues. Keep in mind, we are talking 4 adult daycare centers and at least 50 plus houses. One of the houses, as soon as you walk in the door you are assaulted by toilet stink. Imagine a porta potty baking in the summer sun. It's just old musky urine/shit stink. I immediately flinch, and the woman caretaker says, "Don't worry, you'll get used to it." I go to sit down at their PC and notice the chair has a shit stain on it. No thanks, I'll stand. I then go to put my laptop bag on the ground, and the caretaker says, "You may wanna keep that with you. We haven't bombed for bed bugs just yet, and we had an outbreak last week." I immediately step outside and explain that I need to leave, but my office manager says just finish the job and we won't have to come back. I put my laptop back in my car and went back to the client. As I'm attempting to fix the PC, a client comes in and is demanding something. When the caretaker won't give it to her, she just starts screaming. Just a loud, long guttural scream. After 20 seconds or so, she reaches into the back of her sweatpants and pulls out a wad of shit, which she proceeds to throw at the caretaker. Apparently she got so mad she shit herself and then proceeded to use that shit as a weapon. I duck behind the PC screen, wait for this literal shit fit to end, and immediately beeline it to the door. I don't bother calling my office manager until I'm 20 minutes away, so she can't tell me to turn around. I was never sent back there again. Back in the mid 2000s I was heavy into the online dating scene. Would chat it up with a girl, I hope, on AIM, and maybe down the road we would meet up. I was on and off chatting with this girl for about a year that I hadn't met when she called me one evening going on about catching a guy hiding under her bed and that she was scared and didn't want to be alone. She wanted me to come over and stay the night because even though she said she talked to the police, she wanted someone there to at least make sure she was safe. I found it odd at first because we hadn't met before, but I decided to go because she sounded genuinely scared. Her apartment was the entire bottom level of a really nice old house. I walked in and the smell hit me first. Old, rotting food mixed with shit. Her kitchen was completely covered with dishes, opened canned food, old drinks in cups. Her living room was just as bad with piles of dirty laundry, old dishes and cups everywhere. She told me to make myself comfortable on her couch and she went off to the other room. I had to push a pile of clothes and papers off the couch just to sit down. After about a minute or two she calls me into her bedroom to show me where the guy was hiding. I walk into her bedroom to see a nightmare. More dishes. How many dishes can one person have? clothes everywhere, a bowl of old stagnant water and a bowl of moldy food for like a cat or something. I asked her if she had a cat or a small dog. She said no. Now her whole story was that she came home and went to get changed in the bedroom when she found a guy hiding underneath her bed. She screamed. He ran. End of story. The first problem with the story was that her bed was only an inch or so off the floor. Not even the skinniest guy could hide underneath that. I decided not to point that out and try to think of a nice way to get the fuck out of there. She led me back to the couch and asked me if I wanted to fool around. I declined and she got a little irritated and started pacing. She then got up and announced that she had to use the bathroom. After a few minutes alone trying to come up with a legitimate exit plan that doesn't require me getting stabbed, I hear her call for me from the bathroom using a very sing-song voice. She asks if I could hand her a roll of toilet paper, to which I hesitantly obliged. As I walked over to her closet that held the toilet paper, I had to pass her. She had the bathroom door wide open and was currently grunting rather loud. As I grabbed her the toilet paper, she let out a grunt followed by a large plop. At this point I handed her the toilet paper and she thanked me, wiped in front of me even as I quickly walked back to the living room. I hear the toilet flush and her move from the bathroom back to her bedroom, calling out to me as she moved, "I'm going to get changed into something comfortable." She never washed her hands. After a few moments she calls to me again in that sing-song voice. I sighed, got up and headed towards her bedroom. She was standing there, topless, with only panties on and a sanitary napkin hanging from her panties. She then told me not to mind the pad because she bleeds sometimes. I needed a way out. I came up with the idea of making my clamshell phone ring and pretend I got a call from work and that I had to go in. She got really sad really quickly and began pacing back and forth. I headed to the door and told her that I need to head out. She followed and told me to hold on, that he had to let me out. The other part of her story was that after she discovered the man hiding under her bed, she scared him off by screaming and that he ran out the front door. Her front door had a deadbolt that locked from the inside. I asked her if she always locked it from the inside and she nodded. She unlocked the deadbolt with the key she had on her and opened the door for me. She asked me if I was going to come back and I told her of course. I never went back. A few months later I received a call from a number one didn't recognize. That number left a message and it turned out to be her asking me to call her back on that number and that she missed me. I reverse searched the number out of curiosity and it came back as a number to a mental hospital. A couple things are left out due to length and trying to write this on a mobile. She also had a pet turtle trying to grasp onto life in a very dirty tank. After she got dressed into something more comfortable, she came back to the living room, sat on my lap, and asked me if I wanted to fool around. When I said no, using the excuse that I was a born-again Christian and that I'm saving myself for marriage, she began pacing again and muttering to herself. Her more comfortable attire was a set of very old and very tight pajamas. Even though I vowed never to go back to her again, I did the same thing 2 months later with a different girl I was chatting with that called me to come over. That one had a better outcome. I was very adventurous in my mid-20s. I moved to a new city at the start of my senior year in high school and quickly made a friend. I'll call her Amy here. We hung out at school a lot and eventually we started hanging out outside of school. The first and last time I went to her house, I was struck by how messy it was. Piles of laundry on the couch, a layer of dust on the thousands of knickknacks that sat on shelves or were hung on walls. I felt immediately stifled in there, but didn't give it that much thought beyond this, nor did I think twice about accepting a soda when her mom offered. Amy's mom emerges from the kitchen with a huge glass of soda in hand and then proceeds to tell me that she is a magical creature from another realm. At first, I just laughed, but she snapped at me and told me that only believers could stay. I kind of nodded and went with it, now convinced that she was not right in the head. I took a sip of my soda and just as I was pulling the glass away from my mouth, I noticed that this amber glass had what I thought were a bunch of cracks on the side, and there was something brown stuck to one of the ice cubes. As this woman is ranting and raving about having met fairies and unicorns, I ran my finger along the cracks, and they moved. I felt my stomach turn, telling myself that she must have had soda out of this glass a lot, and that this was just the syrupy bits of soda that she didn't wash off very well, or something to that effect. I took a closer look at the thing stuck to my ice cube. It was a goddamn roach leg. I quietly interrupted to point this out to her as I tried really hard not to gag. What followed was a lecture on how soda was expensive, and that it was rude and horrible of me not to just pick out the leg and keep drinking the soda. I don't even remember what I said to get out of there, but for as long as I knew Amy, I never set foot inside that house again. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe. I had a new friend in middle school, and I went over her house for a sleepover. It was fun at first, because we were just playing outside. Then she shows me her creepy, unfinished basement with a rabbit hutch and some bunnies. She tells me how sad she was when one of her bunnies died recently, and how her older brother made her laugh by making its corpse dance. Her dad is drinking in the kitchen. Big beer gut. Something about him makes me feel uneasy. She shows me a room with a big fish hanging on the wall and flies around its eyes. She says we can either sleep in here on the couches or in her bedroom. Then she tells me that her mom and brother sleep in her room with her every night, and they lock the door. I ask why. She says ghosts. I'm thinking, what about your dad? Don't ask it aloud, because I figure it's really him they are hiding from. Then I fake a stomach ache and had her mom take me home. Edit, because everyone's asking. We were about 12 years old at the time. My mom spoke to her mom over the phone when we made the plans. Her mom was a nice, seemingly normal lady. There was no reason for my mom to be concerned. I don't think there would have been a reason for concern, even if she had met the father. It's not like the dude was some horrific character straight out of Deliverance. Same if she toured the house. It was a totally normal house, albeit old, big, and therefore creepy. And the fish wasn't rotting, it was taxidermy. There were just some gnats around its eyes for whatever reason. I was still going to sleep there until my friend said her mom and brother slept in her room at night because of ghosts. And she told me this fact with the same level of excitement that she told me the story about her brother making the dead bunny dance. For all I know, she was just fucking with me because she got a thrill out of being creepy. She was into the macabre and ended up being goth and working at Hot Topic when we were in high school. I was the new kid in the 6th grade and quickly made friends with this one girl. I think she kind of jumped at the chance to be friends with the one person who knew literally nothing about her. She was really nice to me, but also kind of really strange. Like she'd growl at people, and she'd draw wolves on every single surface from the classroom to her bedroom, but nonetheless we were both in an advanced art program, so we saw each other more than I saw other people in my grade, and I wasn't in a position to reject friendship. Went to her house once, never went back. When we entered the home it smelled heavily of dog urine, but there wasn't a dog. When I asked if she had a dog, her response was no, not since the accident. Then there was an uncomfortable silence and she just started laughing uncontrollably. Red flag. I stayed because my mother wasn't picking me up until a bit later, and I didn't exactly know how to walk home. When my mother did come to pick me up, and I was about to exit the house, the girl's mom literally ran after me and grabbed me and brought me back upstairs. She shook my shoulders screaming I couldn't leave right now. I started freaking out, not knowing what was happening. The girl's mom is frantically running around to all the windows and screaming at someone outside in a language I don't understand. My mom calls the house and is also freaking out. The girl's mom wouldn't let her talk to me, and she also just watched me get dragged back by this woman. So she calls the police. It escalates and turns into like a mini hostage kind of situation. There was a guy outside that the girl's mom used to date, and he wanted something from her, and if I left he'd run into the house when the door opened, so I couldn't leave. Cops come. The girl's mom gives me a plastic shopping bag duct taped everywhere and tells me under no circumstances am I allowed to look inside of it and that I had to hand it to the man outside. I didn't want to do that, but it seems like it's the only way I'm getting out of there. It was rounded out by the contents and I remember it bearing the weight of a bowling ball. I actually peed on myself, I was so scared. I didn't know what else to do, so I took the bag and started to leave the house. When I made it to the exit I straight up yeeted the bag and ran to my mother. I have no clue where the guy was. I think at that point he was already apprehended by the police. Whole time this was happening, the girl who I was there to hang out with was sitting on the table in her kitchen, eating cereal like a dog, not at all fazed by the series of events happening in front her. We had to go to the police station that night and because it was so late when I got home, I didn't go to school the next day. That day I missed school. The girl told everyone I was insane and that when we hung out I went crazy and I peed myself for no absolutely reason. We don't talk anymore. Edit. Spelling. Walking from the mall one day I took a different block than I normally did. I passed a house with a rusted old vehicle in the driveway and just as I pass, roaches scatter in broad daylight. A month or so passes and I'm hanging out with my buddy. He says to me, I met some dude who's pretty cool. Want to go over to his place? Sure, I reply. We pull up, no shit, up to that same house from the beginning of the story. Same car, same roaches. Fuck it. The guy was okay to hang out with, it turns out, but everything else that happened in that house was the thing of nightmares. And yes, the roaches live inside too. 1. Dad and mom hanging out on dirty couch. Dad in his underwear. 2. Two emaciated dogs, a Great Dane with some horrible joint issue or displaced leg socket limping around, and a Chihuahua constantly rubbing his ass all over the carpet. 3. No running water. It had to be turned on from the mains as everything leaked in the house if they left it on. 4. Cigarettes put out on tables, desks, literally anywhere possible. 5. The kid literally baking inside his room. 6. The same kid spray painted his room black. 7. That kid's brother sleepwalking and peeing on the kitchen floor. He cleans it up with a towel laying on the floor and leaves it there once he's done. 8. That same kitchen has stacks of dishes migrating out from the sink onto every inch of the counter. 8. Me and my buddy ask if he has any snacks. He comes back with a bag of chips, jar of mayonnaise, can of corn, and can of tuna. Mixed it all up and proceeds to double dip all day. Not to mention I hate tuna, but that's my issue. Wash it down with a bottle of Shasta Cola with Santa on it. It's August. 9. Dad comes in to chat with the guys and talks about his gout for an hour. 10. Dude's cousin is living there because she got kicked out of her house. She's fat and trashy and lonely, so she tries to hang with us. Sitting on the nasty stained carpet, picking her feet, while eating a bag of Cheetos, and without shame, asks if we'd like any. Now granted, this all took place on mostly separate occasions, and I kept going back. But whoa boy, that family was something else. And every time I left, I thought to myself, that's it, I'm never coming back. It actually caused a rift in our friendship that I don't think we ever got over. He was in town only for a few days. I told him if I came over, since we were drinking, I needed to spend the night and that my wife would be there because we lived an hour away. So he's home from college and we go to his childhood home, his mom's house. She's out with friends. I walk in with an overpass bag for me and my wife. I ask where to put it and he shows me where we'll be sleeping. This is a mid-80s era trailer. Looks clean though. Until he opens the door to this room. His mom's room. I dared not turn the light on. There are unclean sheets on the bed. There are 5 dogs in there, mostly laying on the bed, which I now notice is covered in dog hair. On the floor, which is bare plywood as the carpet looked to have been haphazardly torn out, there are 10-15 piles of shit and piss soaking into the wood everywhere. My friend looks past all of this and tells me I can put my bag on a chair in the room. I said okay, and my wife was just glaring at me. I looked back at her like I got this. It looked as though he had cleaned the whole house pretty well, then shoved the dogs into his mom's room, which seemed frequent given the state of it. So I went out on the back porch with my wife and the first thing out of her mouth was, "We are not fucking sleeping here. Your friend is fucking disgusting, and I'm not staying in that room." I said, "Babe, you don't have to sell me on it. I just don't know how we are gonna get out of it." I basically requested a room. She said, "I'll stay sober. I can drive. You gotta get us out of here." I said, "Okay, can we just hang out a while longer?" She agreed that was fine. A couple hours later, and her body language basically said she was Deniso. I asked where the bathroom was. I went in there and shat. As I tried to think of what to do to get out, then it occurred to me I was doing it. I shat, wiped, then read everything in the bathroom, and flushed probably 6 times. I came out of the bathroom gripping my stomach, and covered in flops wet, splashed on water from the sink. Proclaimed we had had sushi for dinner, and it must have been bad. Went and got my bag and went home. I'm not the best actor. I'm pretty sure my friend knew what was up. We were never the same after that. IDK. Our friendship definitely wasn't worth staying a night in that literal shithole.